Believe it or not, what you see behind me right now is one single Porsche 911 Turbo. I bought the car in rough shape. It came with a massive truckload of parts and one very blown up engine. I snatched a new engine off the shelves here at the shop, addressed all the usual failure points, and now we have everything we need to put this 911 Turbo back together and hear it run for the first time in years. We have a massive amount of work to do, but with all these parts, the perfect project sponsor, and our friends at Avalon King, and like 12% of the required knowledge, I'm mildly sure we're about to get this car back on the road. Five minutes and we've already found our first roadblock. First order of business today, connect the engine and transmission. That way it's one big assembly ready to go up in the car. Easy enough. Well, it is easy enough when half your car didn't come in the back of a pickup truck. But given the fact that we buy the dumbest / cheapest stuff possible, this is the situation we find ourselves in. Just for reference, our clutch fork goes right about there. We had to uninstall our clutch fork from the transmission because it goes down here on the release bearing first. Luckily, these two guys were mounted in the transmission, so they didn't really have an opportunity to get lost. But at some point here, when somebody was going through this car, it lost a needle bearing. As of now, we're only down one needle bearing. We can order another one, but if you look right there, that bolt hole, there's a retainer plate that actually holds that pin in. So they might not have reinstalled them in the trans, but they were nice enough to put all this in one place. Here's the plastic cap we're looking for, and here is the retainer bracket. If I recall, this goes over there. This bolts into that bolt hole I showed you guys earlier. I think we all knew that when it came time to put this engine and transmission back in the car, when it came time to actually get it running, we were going to be facing an inevitable battle of missing parts. But hey, that's part of the fun of a project like this, right? Right? We'll call it a minor annoyance at this point, because the beauty of having a car that needs so much work, there's a million other things we can work on until the bearing gets here. Including this, which is something I thought was about to be a massive struggle. Last episode, we removed a super complex aftermarket fuel setup from the car. It was a billet hanger, dual fuel pumps. It was an awesome setup, but they had to hack the car up pretty well to install it. In fact, it was so modified, it went as far as to order a full stock replacement gas tank fuel pump hanger, something that had never been open. We had to order all new lines all the way to the back of the car. The one thing we're left with, the one thing we haven't been able to replace, this connector here. This 4-pin connector plugged into that aftermarket hanger. We had grounds running up to relays up there. Unfortunately, it's not going to cut it with the stock hanger. After a ton of research, as far as I'm aware, you can't order just this connector. My only option was to order an entire wiring harness. Now, before I went and spent a ton of money on a brand new harness for one connector, I remembered something the previous owner said to me just before I pulled off with the car. He said, "Hey, I have another box of parts in my attic. Do you want them?" As car guys, we know the only answer to that question is abso-fucking-lutely. After stressing over that harness for quite some time, I did remember there was an old broken fuel hanger assembly in there. And of course, it does have the original connector on it. I was truly sweating this. Even though these things are cut down short, we have the pins, we have the plastic connector. I'm sure we can make this work. Alrighty then. I gotta say, I've never taken apart one of these connectors before, and it was way easier than I expected. I've tried some other stuff on Audis and Porsches. They've never been fun, but this one, not too bad. I went and cut a connector off another car that uses the same style connectors. The colors aren't gonna match, but at this point, I'd rather have these OEM connections. We'll cut it with enough pigtail to splice onto our wiring harness over here, and I think that should set us straight. Yeah, when I started this about an hour ago, this isn't exactly what I imagined I'd have in my hand at the end of it, but hey, I suppose it ain't dumb if it works. There we are. Trust me, I know in the grand scheme of things, this seems super trivial. When we're putting together an entire car like this, one connector, not the biggest deal in the world. But if you've ever been in a position where you have an issue and you simply don't know how you're gonna solve it, then all of a sudden, a couple hours later, it's completely resolved, you know exactly how big of a win this is. Now we can move on to some stuff that's a lot more fun than wiring a fuel pump. Okay, so technically needle bearings don't classify as more fun, but hey, it's a necessary evil. And big ol' shout out to our guys at Pelican Parts for getting us this overnight so we can get back on with our engine trans install. You're not gonna believe it, but these transmissions are only mounted with 4 bolts. 1, 2, same on the other side, 3, 4. Most of the cars that I deal with, and I presume you guys deal with, unless you're Porsche guys, have 6 or 8 bolts. I don't think it's a stretch to give Porsche the benefit of the doubt. They knew what they were doing here. Every bit of this car is super serviceable, except the long block. That terrifies me. If there was one part of this transmission job that is a bit tricky, it's this guy right here. You might have been wondering what I was doing with this stuff here. Why did I have the clutch fork taped to the pressure plate? Well, that's so it doesn't do 180 degrees and fall straight down. We have it aligned the right way. Now we need to get this pin in there without losing any more needle bearings. If in the next minute or so you guys hear a lot of, you know exactly what happened. If you couldn't envision what I was showing on the tool bench earlier, there it is, easy enough. Now speaking of easy, this slave cylinder. It's a GT21. I mentioned that earlier in the series. The kit is about $1,200. It might seem like a lot of money, especially since this just looks like a slave cylinder. Well, the stock one, that doesn't look like a slave cylinder. It's this massive monstrosity. It runs off Pentosin, looped in with the power steering pump. It's a wreck. Any manual 997 turbo, you need this. Finally, look at the full assembly that's getting ready to go into the car. It took a day longer than expected, but hey, progress is progress. Not only is that one major step knocked out, but it also allows us to make progress on this mess of parts over here. While there is some stuff like this drive shaft here that we definitely need to keep, the gaskets not so much. This other engine that we pulled off the shelf was so complete, it means we can sell a lot of this stuff and recoup a decent bit of money. The idea is that after putting in all this time, effort, and money, that once this thing's wrapped up, we're gonna be in that car a lot cheaper than we could have just went and bought one from the jump for. And if not, I guess it was a good learning experience.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
You ready?
Yeah, feels familiar.
It does feel familiar. When did we become certified Porsche guys?
Can we call us like that?
That is a good point. Okay. We went from messing with Corvettes and Camaros to people telling us we're saying Porsche wrong.
It's Porsche. We all know that,
what
right?
Was that?
Porsche.
You did something else there. I don't know what that was.
It's our terminology.
It's Porsche.
Porsche.
Anyway, it's about time to do this again. Hopefully now that we've got one install under our belts in the purple car, this one's gonna go a little smoother. And while we're at it, speaking of smooth, this 4th of July, our good friends at Avalon King are celebrating your right to bear armor shield with their biggest sale of the year. Today through Tuesday the 4th, you can get 3 ceramic coating kits for $99. And not only that, they're putting the free in freedom, offering all types of freebies with your order. Shampoos, wash mitts, buffing towels, all the same stuff I used when I very fittingly gave the full Avalon King treatment to my most American car. Guys, if you've never used Avalon King Armor Shield 9, you're missing out. It's made to be applied by everyday car guys like you and I. No professional detailers required. That's right, DIY. The American way, which is the whole theme here in case you're not picking it up. Avalon King fills the pores in paint or any other surface to create an invisible shield that protects your car from everyday use for years. I can't stress enough how easy this stuff is to apply. You clean the surface of your car, wrap the supplied cloth around the applicator kit, add a few drops from the bottle, work in small sections, let it dry for a minute, and then wipe it down. You can coat your glass so there's no wipers required. You can coat your rims to get rid of a bunch of brake dust, plastic, door guards, it protects your lights. It's endless. There's pretty much no limit to what you can coat with this stuff. I mean, you obviously couldn't coat Fernando, but you understand what I'm saying. So if you're ready to get your ride looking right this summer, let them liberate you from the tyranny of waxing your car every other weekend.
I see what you did there.
One more time, guys. 3 kits, 99 bucks, freebies, all at the link in the description and in the comments. What more could you want?
That running.
We'll get there. One quick note before we meet these two guys together. This is my first time seeing these aftermarket intercoolers. We knew they were aftermarket. We could see it up from the top, but I still don't see any markings on them. It does look like a nice set of intercoolers. They're pretty thick cores. They look quality. Bar and plate, but I don't know what they are.
But it's actually something wrong with them.
No carbon fiber.
Yeah, there you go.
Devil's advocate here. I'm sure these were a lot cheaper than the monsters from Do 88 that I put on my car. And this car, well, actually, maybe it could have benefited from big intercoolers. All right, I take that back. intercooler talk aside, go ahead and lay this thing down on the drivetrain. Let's see what happens.
Are you shooting some point?
Nope. Looks good.
That's your mission point?
Yeah, right there. I will say one thing we picked up from the purple car is knowing not to put the starter on first. The trans bolts are in. Now we just gotta let those studs down there slide into the hole and we're home free. Well, that legitimately was 15 minutes.
We're pros.
Well, the thumbs were going the wrong way. There you go. You know, I wouldn't by any stretch of the imagination call us professionals at this point, but I do think we learned a thing or two from the disaster that was the purple car. If you happen to not be around for the last build, Porsche's made this stuff so easy. Other than the physical long block, everything is so simple. Now it's just a matter of connecting the dots. We hook up a few easy things, and then we get to hang this awesome straight pipe exhaust. Yeah, I'm not gonna say this has happened before, but I'm also not gonna say it hasn't. One of our shifter cables up there is trapped between the trans tunnel and the transmission. I believe we're gonna have to lower this down a little bit to free it up. We're back home. Man, in the grand scheme of things, I know it's kind of small, but it's been quite some time since this thing's been able to row through the gears. Now's about the time we have to start digging through this bin and hoping we have enough parts to mesh this engine with this chassis. So far, it's been pretty much putting together Legos. Fingers crossed it continues. One of the first things I noticed, the coolant hose on the end of this hard line that gets coolant from here all the way and up and over to the engine, severely different on an automatic. Luckily, the stuff we had in the old parts bin here from the manual car checks out. It's all in good shape, so crisis averted for now. Next up, the shaft, and I did have a momentary scare here. I didn't see hardware anywhere for this thing, but then I remembered the shop that tore this thing down after the failure did us a solid, at least one, and stuck the hardware in these boxes. It's all labeled, and I presume right here is our drive shaft hardware. It wasn't easiest to get it in, but it is in. And we've got ourselves the right hardware. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume right now that we're getting set up for a massive letdown later, but for the time being, things are going pretty damn smooth. There we go. As far as the bottom's concerned, we've pretty much done everything we need to do to start it. Now, don't get me wrong, we still have to hit it from the back in the top, but I don't see us having any problem finishing. Truthfully, I thought we were gonna have a really big issue with missing parts, hardware, connectors, whatever. It turns out we got really lucky. The only pair of parts we're missing, the turbo to intercooler hoses. Of course, this car did have a pretty nasty turbo kit on it back in the day when it was making 1,000 horsepower for, 300 miles. So I'm assuming these were trashed long ago. We are gonna have to scramble to find a set of those because unfortunately we don't have any in the shop. If you've watched the channel for any amount of time, you know we're quite spoiled here. We can generally take whatever parts we need directly off the shelves. Unfortunately, not the case this time. Now the games begin.
Are you sure that's the right position?
I'm not playing the games with you. I meant the games trying to line it up. Yes, it's the right position. Misjudged that exhaust a little bit. Yeah, it's hanging like 6 inches lower than the rest of the car, and I didn't realize it until this moment. I need some nuts, please. There's no other way to say it. Fernando, can you please hand me the hardware for this exhaust?
Okay, can you say
Nope.
like the next sentence?
Hardware, please. As is the case with almost every one of these, like half the studs, or in this case, 75% of the studs are missing from the turbo.
Do you think this car should be louder than yours?
I don't know. That's a good question. It's both straight pipe exhaust, no cats, no mufflers, which is the right way to run a Porsche. We are going to have ourselves a ton of adjustment here to make sure these tips line up in the bumper well, but we can knock that out in a little bit. As for now, we move on to what should be the easy part of this, just reassembling the engine bay. I gotta say that went much easier than expected. Sometimes with aftermarket exhausts, they don't line up the best. This one's easily adjustable, it looks great in the bumper, you really can't complain about it. I love that they went with the GT2 style tips, just like I used on my car as well. Some people don't like this in the turbo bumper. Personally, me, I'm a big fan. During the install though, I did run into one more thing we're missing. So in addition to these hoses here, which we still need to source, we don't have rear O2 sensors. Being that this car was built, the exhaust just has block offs in there. I was hoping that they came with the car. Unfortunately, they did not. Of course, one of the first things I found we're missing were a bunch of these guys. They secure the coolant hoses to the engine and they're missing all over. Fortunately though, saving them's paid off. We almost made it. I was getting ready to put the Y pipe in. Everything has went super smooth so far. It's taken roughly 30 minutes just plugging stuff in, but as luck would have it, there is gonna be one single thing that stops us from slapping this together completely. That bottom line on the coolant reservoir goes over here to this metal line. Unfortunately, we ain't got it. We had a glimmer of hope way up there on the shelves. I found one of these guys. It's the same coolant reservoir we have. It's the same 996 part number. The hose is on it. Great, awesome, we're good to go. Yeah, not so fast. This is a 997 part number. It just so happens this is out of a 997.2 with the new motor. Clearly, I wish we could have lucked out on that, but no bueno. I'm not gonna sweat it because finishing up the engine bay is gonna go something like this. Acquire hose, install hose, slap on Y pipe, slap on airbox. Oh, and of course we'll have to plug in the MAF and the Y pipe sensor and all that stuff. But either way, we are close. We have to hunt down a few parts, fill it with fluid, and I think we crank it up. You guys know that old saying about blessings in disguise? So while we're waiting on the couple parts we need, I got to thinking, is there anything else that's gonna prevent us from starting it? And there is. It's been a minute since I've been through the paperwork on this car. So long, in fact, that I forgot that it had a Cobb access port. That's obviously tuned for the big injectors, the big turbos, the built motor. Clearly not gonna work for what we're doing. The problem is that device wasn't included with the car, so we can't just plug it in and flash it back to stock. You already know where we're sending it. Our guys at AIM Performance, they got all the latest firmware from Porsche. They're gonna flash it on the car. It should be back today. Perfect timing. I'm excited to see this thing back. Let's all collectively cross our fingers. If I have anything to say about it, this is the last time this car is gonna see a tow truck under my ownership. Not only that, actually, once we get it down and push it in the shop, it should be the last time we have to push this car around.
Are you actually ready for this?
I'm ready.
Ready?
I've been ready. I was ready 3 days ago, and I suppose we do have to talk about that. This whole ordeal, sending it up to AIM, did take a little longer than we originally anticipated. When I sent the car up, they had all the codes needed to do it. Unfortunately, we ran into a little bit of an issue. To flash these cars to stock, the ECU needs to be properly VIN numbered to the car. It's not a problem if it hasn't been swapped out before. Of course, you probably know where I'm going with this one. This one had been swapped out at some point. Of course, because they are who they are and they're Porsche legends, they got it taken care of once they got the correct codes. And not only that, they helped us out in a few other ways that I'll show you once we get it inside. But quickly, before we do that, guys, King's Transport and Towing. If you're in the Mid-Atlantic, Maryland, give them a look. They've helped me out more times than I can count. I got the call this car was done like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. It's here less than 24 hours later. They sent the truck up, picked it up last night, and got it to me ASAP. If you've been paying attention, you're probably aware of the fact that I've been pressing to get this car together. It hasn't ran in God knows how long. I'm kind of sick of it. I want to hear it run. I want to drive it. So when I figured out I was going to have to sit at AIM for a little bit, I figured it would be wise to have them do a little work to it while it was there. When we sent this car out of here, didn't have that hose on it right there. It definitely didn't have coolant in it, and it also didn't have oil in it. I know you can't see it, but you're gonna have to take my word for it. That's right, the coolant is full, the coolant's bled, and probably most importantly, they've already checked it for oil pressure. So even though we had some unexpected downtime, we made the best use of it. Now we should theoretically be able to put on our Y pipe, put on our airbox, and start the car. And if I don't seem confident about that, there's a reason. Yeah, our intercooler pipes. We still don't have those.
Oh, they're Bluetooth connected.
Okay, in theory that works, but I have talked to the guys at AIM. Apparently, as long as we leave the MAF sensors disconnected, we can still start it. Putting an airbox in is a first for me. It's not the nicest thing to do. There's not a ton of space in here. Luckily with my car, we just, stuck filters on the end of the turbo. That just pushes down. It's not the hardest install I've ever done. I think these vents just press against it, hold it in place, which if you didn't know that's how this car works, it's pretty awesome. If you see the grooves on there, they're made to go into a different type of hose. This is an aftermarket silicone coupler. I think we're in. Nope, we're not. Ooh, there we go. We're on team. How do you think this is gonna go?
I don't know. Can we trust it?
We can trust it. I mean, look at the engine bay. The engine bay looks legitimate. It looks done. It looks like a pretty complete car. When we get under it, or when we get up here to the front, where there's no battery, no fuel tank cover, no whatever that cover is, it looks like a giant mess. I don't know that I would trust that, but I'm pretty positive there's nothing that's going to prevent it from starting, except the jump box.
Oop.
Let's do it.
It's the first guy that you fix right, that you don't modify it.
So that is
Can we
weird.
do that?
We've talked about that 10 times here. It's still really weird to me that we took this car from just being a blown up 1,000 horsepower mess to stock. It's just not the way I operate. It feels alien to me. Fernando, crank it up. Let's hear this stock beast come to life, hopefully.
Wow, you say that. You didn't say the other part.
Just stop it. Come on, man. What are you doing? Crank her up.
We need a battery.
Let's order a battery. Sounds like a Porsche. To be fair, I was going to go get a battery later today. I just got antsy. I wanted to start it. It is not a light battery. Or a convenient position, if we're being honest. And I put it in f***ing backwards. Alright. Whoops. Damn it.
If you got a Porsche and you need a battery replace, please call Lee. He's gonna take care of that.
Rent an engine hoist.
The whole air system is gonna work.
It should. There's no reason why it won't. But frankly, I have not looked into that at all yet. I just want to get the thing started. It's been a long time coming. And then next episode, we'll do everything we need to do to get this working, running, driving 100%. Fernando, we got a battery. Please start the car.
You ready for this?
I am. Well, that was way easier than expected.
We got no fuel.
You're not lying. We literally have no fuel. Wow. Okay.
Oil pressure?
Oil pressure's good. I can hear it clear as day. I'm sure you guys can too. There is some belt noise in there, but otherwise, this sounds really quiet. All right, be honest with me here. Did you think that was gonna go like that smoothly? It just cranked up? No. I thought it was gonna be an ordeal like my car was, for reference. That was so easy that I almost feel like I'm not appreciating this moment enough. There's nothing flying out from under the car. It's not leaking. Stay in there in case I yell, all right? I know this is a completely different reaction from when I started my car for the first time, but this just went way too easy. I do suppose the fact that they pressure tested everything in AIM helps this. We didn't have to chase down any leaks. We would have known about it if one was coming for us, but still, this feels suspiciously easy. Listen to it now. I think that noise was just because this engine itself hasn't been started in so long. Forget the car. We don't know when the last time this engine was started is. Is it up to temp now?
I think we're Gucci, 175.
That's about what it should be. We gotta start building more stock cars, man. This is too smooth. Like, we can go home now. We're good.
That turbo noise.
Sounds good. All right, shut it down. No intercooler pipes, no fuel, no problem. Just put that on a t-shirt.
Sounds like a vacuum cleaner.
It sounds good. You know it sounds good.
It's probably the best sounding Porsche in the shop yet.
Nah, there's no way, right? You couldn't have been talking about this one. He must have forgot about that, and he was talking about the Macan GTS, the paint to sample, lightly crashed one that will be a project on the channel soon. I mean, I'm not gonna not plug it. So look, I know we just heard this thing run for the first time in years. It should be a very joyful moment, right?
Yes.
Think we get a little more power out of this thing?
We just talk about it. It's supposed to be a stock.
Boring. I'm bored already. We gotta do something with it. Maybe we throw those turbos back on it. See if we can manage not to blow it up. Make like a nice solid 800 horsepower. Or maybe we just enjoy it like this for a little bit first. I don't know. We still have a lot of work to do as it sits to get it on the road. I don't want to drive it out to the shop today. We'll save that for next episode. I want to make sure we have the intercooler pipes on there. I want to make sure everything is flawless. Old habits really want to kick in here. It just all feels too easy, but I think we're going to enjoy this car stock for a little bit. It's got to be an awesome experience.
And the best part is going to be seeing the comparison between your car and this car.
Put it in the comments. Give us some early ideas. What should we do with these two cars? And we need some creative ideas. We can't drag race them. That's not a thing.
No.
We can take them to Tail of the Dragon.
That would be awesome experience.
And I feel that that's overdue because somewhere on this car, I got to find it. It's a black sticker on a tinted window. Over there. Thank you for helping me out with that. This car's already been the Tail of the Dragon. There's more proof right there. I think it needs to go back. Don't let my genuine confusion about how this all just went so easy distract you from the fact that I'm really fucking excited about how this turned out. Our intercooler pipes are due to be here 2 days from now. We do have a ton of finishing work. We have to check the car over from top to bottom. Check things like this front axle lift system to make sure it's working, as Fernando said earlier. We're far from done. This typically, for me at least, ends up being the hardest part of a build sometimes. Call it being naive. Maybe it's just a hunch. But since this all went so well, I think we're going to be in for a pretty easy time.
You did it.
I know. As soon as it came out of my mouth, that was not the thing I wanted to say. Either way, we're going to find out soon enough. So I'll see you guys back here shortly.
Adios.
And now we should have everything we need to put this 911 turbo back together and hear it run. Fuck off! God damn it! Y'all can't see what happened. Oh boy, stalled it over there.
Take the H2O.
Oh, stop.
Oh,
Jesus.
yeah.
Hey, hold on.
That's
Don't you
awesome.
have an actual Volkswagen right now?
I do. I mean, I could go with you.